As we continue celebrating women of the Bible during the month of March, I want to talk about the Samaritan woman at the well in John chapter 4. We don't know her name, but it's one of the most beautiful stories with Jesus. She comes to this well where Jesus is sitting. She's a Samaritan, he's a Jewish man. Normally they would not interact at all. But she's alone. Normally the women would have come to the well in a group. And Jesus begins to have a conversation with her. And I don't have time to get into all of it. They talk about water, and Jesus asked for a cup of water. And he says to her, if you knew who was asking, I would give you of a water that never runs dry. And then he goes on to talk to her about her life. And many people say that he points out that she's on her fifth husband as some way of, convicting her of her sin. And that may be, but I have a different perspective of it. Because during those times, the women weren't the ones who chose their husbands. It was more similar to Muslim culture today, where the men of the family chose the husbands of the women in the family. And so many things, I believe, had been out of her control in her life until that point. And maybe she came alone to the well because there was a certain amount of shame or condemnation that she was living under. And then there was this one who begins this conversation with her, and he starts to talk to her. And then he does something beautiful. She questions him about God and all of these things about the spiritual realm. And he says, I am the Messiah. I am the one who you're talking about. And she is the first person. He honors her by making her the first person that he actually declares that to. And then she does something that every one of us should do when we have an encounter with Jesus, when we realize he's the one we've been wanting, he's the one we've been needing all this time. She puts her water jug down. She stops the course that she was on, and she runs back to her village, and she says, you've got to come see this guy. You've got to come see the one who told me about my life. But in that process, who told her who she really was and who she really could be. And so the whole village comes. She's like the first evangelist in the Bible. She goes running. She shares her story. They all come, and it ends with this beautiful verse where they say to her in John chapter 4, we no longer believe just because of what you said. Now we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this man really is the Savior of the world. I believe that for many of you watching this video, now is the time for you to tell your story. Now is the time for you to share what God has done for you. And if you will be obedient and you will begin to open your mouth and just tell of his goodness towards you, then there will be others, just like the people in her village, that will say, we don't believe anymore just because of what you said. But we know for ourselves now that Jesus is the Savior of the world.